Hello, my fellow miniature enthusiasts. Welcome back to Viva Design Miniatures. I'm Natasha, and I build dollhouses and miniature furniture with a modern twist. This is episode 2 of my Basic to Beautiful series, where I'm taking this store-bought hutch and giving it 5 totally different makeovers to match a variety of interior design styles, all with basic tools and no expensive equipment. Last week I gave this hutch a farmhouse style makeover, and this week I'll be transforming this hutch into a cottage style cabinet. I'll walk you through each step of the process with a full list of supplies, and I'll show you how I would style this hutch to match a cottage-themed dollhouse. All of the supplies you need to make this hutch will be linked down in the description box, so grab your supplies and let's get started. For this project, you'll need an unfinished hutch. This one's from Hobby Lobby for $4.49. You'll need some green paint. I'm using the color Mossy Meadow by Folk Art. This is an acrylic style craft paint. You can use whatever you have. You're going to need a tiny bit of stain, and preferably in a lighter shade. I'm using the color Weathered Oak. Hardware is optional for this project. I'm going to reuse the knobs that came with the hutch, but if you'd like to replace them, you'll need 6 knobs. You'll also need the template for the base, a strip of 1/2-inch balsa wood that's only 1/16-inch thick, and your favorite craft glue. I'm using the Beacon 3-in-1 because this is my favorite glue. The only tools you'll need for this hutch makeover is a pair of scissors, a paintbrush, a sponge brush, an X-Acto knife with a fresh blade, pliers, and a small piece of fine grit sandpaper. The first step in this hutch makeover is to cut out the template for the base. The template is linked in the description of this video, and it's totally free. Make sure you are cutting right on the outside of the outline because it's made to fit the base of the hutch perfectly. The side pieces are intentionally shorter than the sides of the hutch so that it fits perfectly in between the front and back base pieces. Once you have the template pieces cut out, you're going to trace the template onto the strip of balsa wood. You can hold it in place with your fingers or use a piece of tape to secure it, but I would not recommend gluing the paper to the wood because this is going to be the front-facing side of the base. Use your X-Acto knife to carefully cut along the outline. The balsa wood is very soft, so it's easy to cut through, and you can use light pressure and make several passes to get a very clean cut. Be careful going around the arched sections of the outline and really take your time to follow the outline so you don't cut through your actual base piece. Next, take your fine grit sandpaper and gently smooth out the cut lines. You don't want to overdo it and alter the shape of the base, and you should just need to sand over the edges a couple of times to smooth it down. Repeat that same process for the other 3 pieces of the base, and then you can set those aside until we need them later on. Now we're going to remove the original knobs, so grab your pliers and carefully pull them out and set them aside. If you're not planning to reuse these knobs and you're going to replace them, you can just toss them or save them for another project. Be careful not to squeeze too hard with the pliers or you'll accidentally change the shape. The feet on the base of this cabinet should also easily pop off with your pliers, so go ahead and remove those and save them for another project too. Take your new base pieces and give it a quick test fit just to make sure that the shape is perfect, and then you can go ahead and add glue and attach it to the bottom of the base. Make sure you start with the front piece before moving on to the sides because the sides are made to fit perfectly in between the front and back. After you've glued on all 4 pieces of the base, give it a quick once over to make sure that everything is perfectly lined up and that it stands well on its own, and then you can set aside the whole cabinet to dry because we don't want to do anything else while the glue is still wet on the base. Next, you're going to take your sandpaper and give the entire cabinet a once over just to smooth down any texture. Wipe away any dust and then grab your sponge brush and stain and brush over the top of the cabinet on the hutch. If you'd like to customize your hutch further, you could also stain the new base and the top of the hutch. You will also need to stain the knobs if you're planning to reuse them. Let the stain develop until you're happy with the shade, and then take a paper towel and wipe away any excess stain. Next, we're going to paint over the rest of the cabinet, being very careful not to get any paint on the areas we just stained. Acrylic paint does dry quickly, so try to work fast and keep your brush strokes moving in the same direction to avoid streaks when it's dried. I only needed to give this piece 2 coats of paint, but you might need to give it a 3rd coat if you're using a lighter shade. Once the paint is totally dry, you can pop the drawers back in and then reattach the cabinet knobs or add your replacement knobs. I used a tiny amount of glue to make sure they didn't fall out. This is what your completed cabinet should look like. This is the quickest transformation with the least amount of effort in my Basic to Beautiful Hutch series, but the end result is pretty dramatic. I styled my cottage hutch with some vintage mushroom jars, a natural wood bowl full of burgundy flowers, 2 little wicker baskets, and jars of spices. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please be sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more DIY miniature tutorials and dollhouse content. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back next week with episode 3 featuring a modern traditional style hutch transformation.